What's up, YouTube? This is Little Karibo doing a Let's Play of the video game REDHAWK for the Commodore 64. And it's kind of it's a really old game from like the 1980s. And for those of you wondering why I'm doing this Let's Play when I was just in the middle of doing a Let's Play of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, it's because a lot of people complained. Well, not a lot of people, but some people complained about the Let's Play I did of that game, saying you shouldn't have done it in character and you shouldn't have kept telling jokes over the stuff that was happening, because we just want to hear the game and we want to hear you talking normally. And I'm doing this video kind of as a way to explain why I did that the way I did it. Because when I talk normally, I'm extremely boring and dry and uncomfortable and not very entertaining. And the main reason that I make videos in the first place is to entertain people. But anyway, this game involves this guy, Kevin, who is also a superhero. It's kind of like a superhero video game that's designed to look like a comic book. And it's really cool because it lets you walk around freely. It's like a text adventure that just happens to have images designed like a comic book, and you can have the characters say anything you want him to say. Otherwise, it's a fairly bare bones game. There's really very little going on. Occasionally, crimes will happen. You'll go to different places and you'll talk to people, but they won't really respond to anything except one specific thing that they've been programmed to respond to. As you can see, Kevin just turned into this superhero known as REDHAWK, and in order to turn into the superhero known as REDHAWK, you have to say "qua" in any context. You can just say "qua" on its own, or you can say blah 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 "qua," and he will turn into REDHAWK, and he looks kind of ridiculous. And obviously, qua is hawk backwards, in case you didn't realize that very obvious thing. He's basically just Superman. I don't know what REDHAWK's powers are, because as far as I know, he just has the power to punch people. Because that's what he does when you face the different criminals. You say attack the mugger, or you say punch the mugger, and he will say banzai. And then he punches them, and they give up. You don't actually like knock them out. They give up, and then they say, "Arrest me," and you have to arrest them. But as Kevin, you have a job at this place, Feet Street, which is you're a reporter. So you have to take pictures of the criminals, and you get money for them. And I don't know what the money does. It's been a long time since I played this game, but you do have to do this. And I think you earn items that help you solve the later crimes. As you can see here, REDHAWK has just entered Feet Street, which is where Kevin works. And this guy, the editor, every time he sees Red Dwarf, he will tell him about some new crime that's going on in the city that you have to solve. And I think there's a number of different crimes that you have to solve. And this bomb at the power station... Yes, he just said qua sugar tits. This bomb at the power station one... I don't know if I ever solved it, but if I did solve it, yeah, you can see the editor, all he says to REDHAWK is, "There's a bomb on the power station," and then you transform back into Kevin. Nobody notices. Nobody notices that REDHAWK just transformed into Kevin, unless they did see it and they're just in denial about it. But yeah, this bomb at the power station, if you leave the game for too long, the bomb explodes. I think it's about 5 hours of in-game time, and then the bomb just goes off, and everybody dies. So I guess it's some sort of thermonuclear device, because if I remember rightly, the power station is a fair way out from this place where he is. But Kevin is... Look at him. He's really weird looking. He looks like... I mean, later on I make a reference to this when I'm playing it, but he looks like a Gungan. He looks like Jar Jar Binks without the big floppy ears. It's really upsetting to me, the way he looks. But yeah, you can have the characters say whatever you want them to say, and that was the main source of entertainment that I got out of it, because I just liked having the characters like stand there and talk, And and the fact that he had a speech bubble above his head and he was saying the things that I had typed into the computer, that was very exciting for me. I was very excited by things like when they let you name your own characters. Whenever I played like Final Fantasy VII, when I played Final Fantasy VII for the first time and I realized, oh my god, I can change the main character's name to whatever I want it to be. That was a big deal to me. And every time like there was like speech included into a game where you could hear the characters talking. For example, like at the opening to freaking Ghostbusters from the Commodore 64, you'd hear like a really, really tinny version of a guy going, Ghostbusters! And I thought that was amazing. I would play the game just to hear that freaking thing. This Bow Street area that Kevin is in, it's kind of like some sort of looping unit, like he goes through some sort of portal that loops him right back to the start, because I've been through, actually I think Bow Street is like a maze, but every single background is exactly the same, because it does, if it wasn't a maze, it would tell you there is no way to get west or south or whatever, but I think that, yeah, if I had kept going I might have come across something. But yeah, there's actually a sequel to this game simply called Qua, which actually has a much more linear plot, because one of the things that appealed to me about this game was that you could go anywhere and things would happen completely at random. Muggers would show up, criminals would show up. There's like an actual villain gallery in this game that you can encounter, and certain villains are more powerful than other villains. Some of them will have to be defeated in a very specific way. For the most part, there's muggers who show up in the main city area. They show up and they say give me that, and you're never quite sure what they want. I think they might want Kevin's. Oh, that beeping sound is so annoying. Whenever the game doesn't know what you're talking about, it beeps, and it's like the most overbearing thing ever. But the muggers, they try and steal something from you, but I actually discovered during this playthrough that if you just ignore the muggers, they will leave you alone, which I thought was hilarious, because when I was younger and I used to play this, I would always be really frightened by those freaking muggers, because I was like, oh god, I have to do something, I have to turn into REDHAWK and fight them. But really, I discovered here that if you just wait, they leave and they don't do anything. But that was like learning that Father Christmas doesn't exist. Yes, I said Father Christmas because I'm British. I'm not going to say Santa Claus. But yeah, there are different villains in this game. There's one villain in it called Merlin, who always kind of looked like King Tut from the old Batman series with Adam West to me. So I was always just, I mean, I think he had magical powers, but I think he was also one of the weaker villains. Most of the villains can only be defeated by REDHAWK. If you actually try fighting any of the villains as Kevin, he will be immediately killed. Like, literally, the game will say, Kevin looks dead. They won't say that Kevin is dead, they will say, Kevin looks kinda dead. And you'll just have to assume that he's dead. And it was interesting because at the beginning of the game, Kevin always wakes up in hospital. And because the only way to lose the game is to die, I always just assumed that it was some sort of like looping, some sort of like Groundhog Day situation in which Kevin kept dying and then waking up in hospital because of the injuries he'd sustained from being killed. So it was almost like the whole thing is one big story that just never ends. Look at him, he looks like he's in another dimension there. I just love that expression on his face where he's like, duh. It's like he's supposed to be handsome, but he is somehow completely the most hideous person in the world. I actually think he looks kind of cool in that shot. There's the mugger! There's the freaking mugger! Oh my god. He has such an angry look on his face, and he's in this playthrough, he didn't do anything to me. He just sort of stood there and was hanging out outside the hospital. So if you ask me, I think he wasn't actually looking to commit any crimes. He had just been injured and he was just sort of like being released. And this was where he was like, okay, I'm going to go commit a crime. I'm glad that I'm feeling a lot better now, so I can go commit more crimes. But yeah, you can only defeat the muggers as REDHAWK, but in order to get money for your job, you have to take pictures of the criminals as Kevin. You can't, if you're REDHAWK, you don't have a camera. So what you have to do is you have to fight the criminals as REDHAWK, and then you have to take a picture of them. No, you have to, as soon as they give up, you have to transform back into Kevin, take a picture of the criminal, and then you can transform back into REDHAWK, and then you arrest them. Because it won't let you arrest them as Kevin for some reason. If you try and arrest them as Kevin, they'll just laugh at you. I don't know why, because, I mean, they're still beaten to a bloody pulp by a man with muscles the size of East Texas. So, I mean, I guess they just think that Kevin looks ridiculous. And to be fair, he kind of does. And there's Leslie. And here's something that I actually missed on this playthrough. Is because... And the game is kind of trying to throw me a bone at this point. Oh, those bloody beeping noises. But it's kind of trying to help me out because Leslie is actually supposed to help you solve one of the game's first puzzles. You have this camera, and you're supposed to obviously take the pictures of the criminals to get money, but you don't have any film in the camera. You start off the game without any film in the camera because obviously you woke up in a hospital, and I guess they took the film out of the camera so they could perform extensive surgery on you or something. I don't know. But the thing is, you don't have any film. Leslie has all the film because she works at the Daily Bugle or whatever. So in order to get the film, you have to ask her for the film. In this playthrough, I tried going to Feet Street and I asked the editor for film, and I didn't understand why he wasn't giving me any film. I was like, dude, you're the editor. Surely you should have some. And to be fair, that's the obvious choice. But I guess they just wanted you to get it from Leslie. I'm kind of annoyed that, like, none of the main villains showed up in this playthrough. I mean, maybe it's because it's fairly early in the game, but later on you get to meet, like, Merlin and stuff, and they kind of have a lot more fun with the interactions with REDHAWK and everything, because they say some pretty ridiculous stuff, whereas the muggers will just ask you for, like, they'll just say, give me that, and I think they're talking about the camera, but, or maybe they're talking about money. There's the editor again, opening his arms out. But the thing I liked about this game is that, you know, things kind of happened whether or not you took the initiative or not. Like, people would go to different locations. People wouldn't always be in the same place. Because back then, games were a lot more static in that... I mean, even in the early days of, like, the N64 games... You always knew that a certain character would be in a certain place, or a certain puzzle would happen in a certain area in a certain way, whereas people kind of take it for granted these days that games don't quite work the same way. They're a lot more, open-ended, I guess. And this is something I loved about the game Majora's Mask, is that you can go to different places and it won't always be the same, because time will have passed, and you could be too late to do the thing that you wanted to do. And there's a time limit, and there's urgency there, and you feel like, if I don't do this in time, then the world could be completely devastated, or even on a smaller scale, somebody could be in trouble, and I won't be able to do anything for them, and I have to come back and play the thing through again to get to them before they suffer the consequences of blah blah blah. But this game obviously didn't do it on any kind of grand scale, but it really felt like you were living in a world where your character wasn't the only person doing things, and you kind of had a responsibility to go to these different places and get the muggers before they got somebody else, etc., etc. Unfortunately, like I said, it's a very bare bones game, so really you only have like a couple of things to do. You can fight muggers, you can fight supervillains. Obviously, you have to defuse the bomb, otherwise it'll go off and kill everybody. But otherwise, there's not much going on. There was a sequel to this game, as I said, called Qua, which had a much more linear story, and it wasn't free roaming like this one. You had like you were in one specific location researching a very specific case, and the puzzles were all solved in one specific way. And I didn't like it as much for that reason, but it still had the aspect where you could write things and the characters would say whatever you wanted them to. And there was one really clever puzzle right at the beginning of the game where if you actually walk into the building, you get tied up and you get attacked and kidnapped and tied up, and your mouth is gagged. And you can't transform, because in order to transform, you have to say the word qua. And you actually have a tape recorder with you at the start of the game. And in order to solve that puzzle, you have to record yourself saying the word qua. And then when you get tied up, you play it back so that you transform as a result of hearing yourself saying the word qua. Doesn't really make sense, but it works logically in a way because you can figure it out for yourself. Anyway, this is REDHAWK for the Commodore 64, a really great and time-consuming and fun and silly game, and I hope I made it that much sillier for you. This is Little Karibo signing off. Thanks, guys.